Sergio Perez continues to try his best to lose his seat. Helmut Marko has a new Red Bull contract with a secret clause, and Mercedes gives an update on next season's driver lineup. Do consider subscribing. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. It was another difficult weekend for Sergio Perez, as the Mexican driver ended qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix in the wall. Adding insult to injury for the driver who will start in 16th position is the fact that Perez felt he didn't need to push his Red Bull the way he did on the lap where he lost control. Speaking to media after qualifying, Sergio Perez reiterated multiple times that, in hindsight, we didn't need the lap that ended with his RB20 in the wall. Asked about what happened to cause him to lose control, Perez said, "I lost it. I think I clipped the curve, and at that point it was raining harder in turn 8. So when I exited the curve, it was quite late in the corner, and it just sent me off completely into the wall. The changing conditions caused by that rain caused Perez to misjudge the corner. It was so hard to judge the conditions. It was raining harder, but at the end you were not losing grip," he explained. "I was improving my lap. We didn't need to do the lap, but you always know a lot afterwards." He noted that the track had seemed to remain consistent for several laps, but that rain was just changing the track constantly. You will arrive in a corner and all of a sudden it's a little bit damper. The lap before I was on a good lap, but then I arrived into turn 12 and it was quite a lot damper. Perez denied that his crash resulted from him trying too hard. "I was just on a good lap, but in hindsight we didn't need that lap," he said. "It's something we will review. These conditions can catch anyone out, but unfortunately it has been me, 2 in a row. I'm determined to turn things around. It's obviously quite hard to face all the media after these difficult moments, but when we get back to it, it will be even sweeter." But time and again, Perez kept returning to the fact that he likely did not even need to attempt to set a faster lap. "I think after qualifying everyone knows what to think at the time," he said. "However, with the information I have, probably there was no need, and especially where we were, and the rain was picking up. But we went, and we paid the price." Making the crash all the most frustrating for Perez was the fact that he felt yesterday was probably the best Friday of the season. The crash comes at a time where scrutiny of Perez is at a peak. After the British Grand Prix, Helmut Marko stated the coming 2 races, in Hungary and in Belgium, will be critical in determining Perez's future. The Mexican racer signed a contract extension with Red Bull Racing for 2025, with the option to continue into 2026. However, performance clauses in his contract also require Perez to stay within a 100-point gap to his teammate Max Verstappen. Prior to the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend, Perez was already 137 points in arrears. Still, he maintains that he is not worried. "Like I said before, nothing changes," he told media. "I'm fully determined to turn my season around and to focus on my performance." In the aftermath of the crash, Perez admitted that he had some pain in his leg, but that he believes Red Bull has everything available to repair his RB20 and get it back on the track for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Plus, he's confident in his ability to make up for his starting position. "I'm determined to turn this around because, just today, we had a really good day, a very promising day," Perez said of his Saturday. "So I think we have very good information on the long runs. Hopefully tomorrow we're going to have some really good pace to come to the field and hopefully score some points." Kevin Magnussen appears on board with a tongue-in-cheek suggestion made on social media as the Danish driver seeks a new F1 future. Magnussen is without a drive for the 2025 championship, with Haas confirming this week that it will part ways with its longtime driver for a refreshed driver lineup next year. Haas has already signed Oliver Bearman to one of its seats for 2025, with the young British driver taking over the seat vacated by Nico Hülkenberg as the German jumps ship to Sauber ahead of its takeover by Audi. The identity of the second driver is yet to be confirmed, but is hotly tipped to be Esteban Ocon as the French driver departs Alpine at the conclusion of 2024. A social media user has pointed out the possibility, however vague, that Sauber now has the capability to sign Magnussen to reunite him with Hülkenberg at a different team, just for the fun of it. The F1 Troll Instagram account shared photoshopped images of Hülkenberg and Magnussen in the current bright green Sauber racing overalls, and this caught the attention of Magnussen, the Danish driver liking the post to suggest he'd be fully on board with the idea of following his departing teammate. On Thursday, Magnussen spoke about the ending of his time with the Haas team and said he's fully evaluating the options available to him, both in F1 and outside. I know a lot of people outside, so when do you go into the box of now I'm exploring? It's like, just talk to people, he said. Magnussen raced in IMSA and IndyCar during his year out of F1 in 2021. I'm in touch with everyone. I have been, even when I knew I had a contract in Formula One in the next year, I'm still talking to people. I talk to people, of course, but it's not like I'm in contract negotiations with anyone or anything like that. I know what the situation is like and some of the interesting spots outside of F1, in case I need to move on. With Haas appearing far more competitive this year than it has over many of the recent seasons, the future looks bright for the Kannapolis-based squad. Only earlier this week, the team announced a long-term continuation of its technical arrangement with Ferrari, while speculation has also hinted Toyota is interested in coming aboard in a technical capacity. I would have liked to continue here, Magnussen said. Had I continued, it would have been cool to see the fruits of the momentum that's been built here recently. That would have been interesting. But I think there are also other interesting projects out there. There are still seats available in F1 that could be interesting. Carlos Sainz is kind of still holding up that process, but it's eventually going to move, he continued. So right now, I think the best thing is just to focus on doing good races, and then I'll be in contention for the seats available, and things will fall into place eventually. Asked whether he believes he deserves another chance in F1, Magnussen said he believes he does. Yeah, I think so, he said. Helmut Marko has pledged his commitment to Red Bull Racing, as the ties between the Austrian and the racing team have been strengthened. Over the winter, Marko put pen to paper on a new 3-year contract with Red Bull GmbH, the parent company of the Red Bull Racing F1 team, but the Austrian has now pledged his commitment further to the racing team. Marko's position is officially as a representative of GmbH as a consultant advisor to Red Bull Racing, as well as being a director of the F1 team. Over the Hungarian weekend, the 81-year-old has made his commitment to Red Bull Racing clear until the end of 2026 in a move that unblurs the lines between himself and the racing team. Earlier this year, it also emerged that Marko's ongoing participation with Red Bull had implications for the future of Max Verstappen, as the Dutch drivers' services were courted by Mercedes and Toto Wolff as a worthy successor for the departing Lewis Hamilton. A rumored clause in Verstappen's contract, purportedly inserted by Marko through his position as team director, had allowed for the possibility of Verstappen to depart the team if Marko was no longer in his position with Red Bull. Verstappen, who has a contract with Red Bull through until 2028, has been the subject of much speculation in recent months as Mercedes' courting has intensified. Still, the media understands Verstappen has made his position clear to Red Bull that he intends to remain with the Milton Keynes-based squad, at least for 2025, and the clause nullified by Marko's fresh commitment. The consolidation of Marko's relationship with the F1 team could be seen as a move to restore peace in the ranks of the racing team, following the early season controversies that threatened to divide the ranks following GmbH's conclusion of an internal investigation into Horner's behavior as team boss. To that end, shareholder Mark Mateschitz, son of the late Dietrich and owner of 49% of Red Bull GmbH, together with Oliver Mintzlaff, has been eager to restore peace between senior figures in the team. According to the Dutch publication De Telegraaf, Horner is also back on speaking terms with Jos Verstappen, Max's father, following their dispute earlier this month as Jos pulled out of a Red Bull-organized run in an RB8 at the Austrian Grand Prix. This was after Horner questioned having Verstappen in the car, following comments Jos made at the height of the controversy, in which he called for the team boss's job. Toto Wolff has hinted Mercedes won't be committing to a driver decision for F1 2025 until the possibility of tempting Max Verstappen is no more. Mercedes is on the hunt for a driver to replace the departing Lewis Hamilton, with the 7-time F1 world champion leaving Brackley after over a decade in order to join Scuderia Ferrari. It's almost 6 months since the confirmation of Hamilton's departure, with Mercedes choosing to keep their second cockpit open and keep a watching brief over who to put in the car alongside George Russell for 2025. Carlos Sainz briefly appeared to be an option for the Brackley-based team, but with different ideas on how quickly to make a deal happen, the Spaniard now appears to be a more likely candidate for Williams or Alpine. A leading candidate for Mercedes is junior driver Kimi Antonelli, with the young Italian racing in Formula 2 this year. He becomes fully eligible for an F1 super license without the need for special FIA dispensation when he turns 18 in August. But Antonelli's debut year in Formula 2 hasn't been smooth sailing. A victory in the Silverstone sprint race has been the highlight of his season and his only podium finish. He currently lies 8th in the driver standings. Antonelli's Prema Racing teammate Oliver Bearman, a Ferrari junior, has been signed to Haas for next season, and Wolff said that it's clear both drivers have been struggling with the handling and performance of the Prema F2 car, something that is taken into consideration when looking at Antonelli's data. With Antonelli having carried out multiple tests through TPC, testing of previous cars, regulations to get some private running with older Mercedes F1 cars, Wolff said this plays a much bigger factor in how Antonelli is being assessed. It's a data decision, and obviously when you look at Kimi, the team hasn't really found a good grip this year, which can happen, the Austrian told Sky F1 on Saturday. But he's 7th, and Oliver Bearman, who is clearly a very good driver, is 14th. They both struggle with the car. It's not saying that one is better than the other one, but they struggle with the car in specific sessions. So we see what he's doing in an F1 car. That's the most important. Wolff has also made no secret of the fact he views reigning world champion Max Verstappen as an ideal replacement for Hamilton, with Max's father Jos spotted on multiple occasions in discussion with Mercedes personnel in the paddock this season. Wolff has sung Verstappen's praises, and with the Dutch driver appearing to waver on his future, despite having a contract with Red Bull until 2028, Wolff hinted that he is waiting until that door closes entirely before committing to someone else. As for the rest of the driver market, there is something instinctive that tells me don't rush, and I can't even tell you what it is, he said, smiling, before broadcaster and former Mercedes F1 driver Nico Rosberg challenged him on the topic. The German, who won the 2016 title with Mercedes before immediately retiring from F1, said, "That can only be a certain Max Verstappen who hasn't made his mind up yet, if I can just jump in there." Laughing, Wolff referred back to Rosberg's own decision-making as being pertinent to his patience in waiting to see what Verstappen might choose to do. "I had a really good relationship with a driver called Nico Rosberg, who was at the peak of his doing, won a championship, and then he said, 'I don't want this anymore,' so, things can happen." Verstappen has recently distanced himself from the prospect of a switch away from Red Bull, which is understood to be made possible, if he desires, based on a contract clause related to Helmut Marko's ongoing employment with Red Bull. The Dutch driver has made clear his intention to stay with Red Bull for next season, confirming in the driver's press conference in Austria that he will be with Red Bull next year. However, told by OE24 that Verstappen had said yes on Thursday when asked if he would still be driving for Red Bull next year, Wolff replied, "Did he really say that? I don't think he clearly said yes, but I wasn't there." Asked if that meant he was still hoping to persuade Verstappen over to Brackley, the team principal answered, "As I always say, we'll keep our free seat free for as long as possible. First and foremost, we have to make our car faster. If the car goes fast, fast drivers will want to drive with us." And Wolff considers Verstappen to be one of the fastest, saying, "I've said it a lot recently. Max is the best driver at the moment, and everyone who has the chance would like to have Max in their car." Ola Kalenius, Mercedes CEO, sees it the same way. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner gave positive initial feedback from the team's upgrades after bringing changes to the Hungarian Grand Prix, with the upgrades correlating as expected, which has not always been the case throughout the grid this year. Red Bull had 5 new upgrades listed as part of their Hungarian Grand Prix changes, including a new engine cover on Max Verstappen's car with re-sculpted side pods, along with both he and Sergio Perez having changes to the front wing, front corner, rear corner, and updated halo fairings to try and add performance to the RB20. While Horner has stressed Red Bull are in diminishing returns territory on multiple occasions this season, as the team seemingly reached the top of the development curve in Formula One, that has not stopped them from looking to improve their current package. With their rivals having closed in on their dominance in recent races, Red Bull brought multiple parts to the Hungarian Grand Prix in the hope of putting themselves firmly back at the front of the field on performance. As the new parts took effect, the Red Bull team principal offered positive feedback on what he saw following the first 2 hours of Friday practice. While some of Red Bull's rivals have struggled to see upgrades translate into on-track performance so far this season, with correlation issues affecting multiple teams as updates have not quite worked as anticipated, Horner said this was not the case as their latest package arrived at the Hungaroring. "We're seeing correlation between our tools and the track, which is great to see. Horner told Sky F1 after FP2. The aero guys seem reasonably content with the numbers that they're seeing, so it's now about tuning that and getting the most out of it for tomorrow. So it's certainly an encouraging Friday, but there are so many differences between power modes, fuel levels, and even management on the long run of who's managing and how they're managing their tires. I thought the race runs went pretty well. I mean, Max was perhaps doing a bit more tire management than Checo, so you get a varying answer from that. It's all going to be about tires this race and making sure you've got a setup that perhaps isn't the ultimate over a single lap, which is what we've seen over the last couple of years, but gives you that longevity. That's what's going to be crucial.